Captain Lee Dong-yun stared at the empty space where the Veltharian fleet should have been. His ship floated near the edge of the Kepler system, waiting for an enemy that would never come. The silence on the communication channels felt wrong. For 300 years, the Veltharians had controlled this part of space. Now there was nothing. "Sir, we are getting strange readings from the inner planets," said Lieutenant Park Min-ho from his station. "The energy signatures are all wrong. It looks like their cities went dark 6 days ago." Dong-yun walked to the main screen. The Veltharian Empire had ruled over 300 star systems for over 2,000 years. They were older than human civilization. Their crystal ships could drain power from entire suns. They had weapons that could destroy planets from the other side of a solar system. Everyone in the galaxy feared them. "Send a message to Earth Command," Dong-yun ordered. "Tell them we found something impossible." 2 days later, Ambassador Park Minji arrived at New Busan Colony with a team of experts. She had spent 10 years studying the Veltharians. She knew their language, their customs, their technology. She also knew they hated humans. "5 years ago, they called us insects," Minji explained to the gathered officers. "They said we were too stupid to matter. They laughed when we asked for peace talks. They said crushing us would be easier than stepping on ants." Colonel Kim, Jiwoo pulled up star charts on the holographic display. "Ma'am, our scouts checked 12 Veltharian worlds. All of them are dead. No life signs, no power, no movement. Their orbital stations are drifting like space junk." The room fell quiet. Everyone understood what this meant. If the Veltharians were gone, something terrible had happened. Something powerful enough to destroy the greatest empire in known space. "We need to investigate," Minji said. "If there's a new threat out there, humanity needs to know about it." Commander Kim Jiwoo volunteered to lead the investigation team. His ship, the Soul's Pride, was fast and well armed. More importantly, his crew had experience with alien technology. They would need that knowledge to understand what had happened. 3. Journey to Velthara Prime took 8 days. The former capital world of the Empire looked like a broken jewel floating in space. The great crystal cities that had once covered 3 continents were shattered into millions of pieces. The orbital rings that had surrounded the planet were twisted metal and dead crystal. "My God," whispered Dr. Han Seokjin, the team's xenoarchaeologist. "It looks like someone broke their entire civilization with a hammer." Jiwoo ordered his team to scan for survivors. The results came back negative. No Veltharian life signs anywhere in the system. The scan did find something else, though. Human technology signatures mixed in with the wreckage. "There was a battle here," reported Science Officer Lee Haiwon. "I'm detecting fragments of human ships, weapons, and life support systems scattered across the debris field. Our people fought here." The team spent 3 days collecting data from the wreckage. Slowly, a picture began to form. The battle had lasted for weeks. Human ships had somehow appeared deep in Veltharian space. The Veltharians had fought back, with everything they had. Both sides had lost massive numbers of ships, but the humans had won. On the 4th day, they found the most important piece of evidence: a Veltharian data crystal floating near the ruins of their capital building. The crystal was still functional, containing the Empire's final emergency transmission. Dr. Song Yunbi, the team's translator, worked for hours to decode the message. When she finished, her face was pale. "Sir, you need to hear this," she said. The holographic display activated, showing the image of a Veltharian leader. The creature looked like a living crystal statue, beautiful and terrible at the same time. But fear showed in its glowing eyes. "This is Prime Crystal Luminous speaking to all Veltharian forces." The recording began. "I am transmitting our final, tactical analysis before the fall of our homeworld. The humans have proven far more dangerous than our models predicted." The recording continued. "We underestimated their adaptability. When we drained their suns, they found new power sources. When we destroyed their fleets, they built new ones with different designs. When we used our greatest weapons, they learned to copy them and make them better." Jiwoo and his team listened in amazement as the Veltharian leader described humanity's war tactics. The humans had refused to fight fairly. They had used tricks, traps, and unexpected strategies. When the Veltharians expected them to retreat, they attacked. When the Veltharians prepared for attacks, the humans vanished. Most disturbing of all, the recording continued, is their technological evolution speed. In 6 months of warfare, they advanced their capabilities by centuries. They stole our sun-draining technology and improved it. They learned to turn our own power sources against us. The holographic Veltharian's voice became desperate. Our empire is falling because we cannot predict human behavior. They do not follow logical patterns. They sacrifice ships to save planets, then sacrifice planets to save ships. Their strategies change so quickly that our tactical computers cannot keep up. The recording began to break up as weapons fire echoed in the background. To any civilizations receiving this message, be warned. Humans are not the primitive species we believe them to be. They are adaptable beyond measure. They learn faster than should be possible. They turn every weakness into a strength. The final words came through clearly despite the static. Even our greatest advantage became our weakness. Our unity of purpose made us predictable. Their chaos made them impossible to defeat. The human species is far more dangerous than we ever imagined. The recording ended with the sound of crystal cities crashing to the ground. Kim Ji-woo stared at the empty display for a long moment. Around him, his team sat in stunned silence. They had come here expecting to find evidence of some new alien threat. Instead, they had found proof that humanity itself was the threat. "Sir," Lieutenant Choi Min-soo said quietly, "if this recording is accurate, then human fleets penetrated deep into Veltharian space and destroyed their entire civilization." "But that's impossible," Dr. Han protested. 5 years ago, we barely had ships that could reach the outer colonies. How could we suddenly become powerful enough to destroy the Veltharians? Dr. Song looked up from her translation notes. "According to this data, we didn't become more powerful. We became more unpredictable. The Veltharians couldn't understand our battle strategies because they changed too quickly." Ji-woo activated the communication system. "Soul's Pride to Earth Command. Priority 1 message. We have discovered the fate of the Veltharian Empire. Recommend immediate strategic review of all human military capabilities." As his ship began the long journey home, Ji-woo wondered what other civilizations in the galaxy thought about humanity now. The Veltharians had been feared across hundreds of star systems. If word spread that humans had destroyed them, how would other alien races react? He had a feeling they would find out soon enough. In the vast darkness of space, other eyes were watching. Other civilizations were taking note of what had happened to the mighty Veltharian Empire, and they were all wondering the same thing. If humans could destroy the Veltharians, what could they do to the rest of the galaxy? 6 months after the discovery of the Veltharian ruins, Earth received an unexpected message. The transmission came from the Zephyrian Collective, a civilization that controlled over 1,000 worlds across the galaxy. Unlike the arrogant Veltharians, the Zephyrians seemed friendly. Dr. Yoon Seung-wan stood in the communication chamber at Earth Defense Headquarters, waiting to make first contact. As Earth's leading expert on hive mind psychology, he had been chosen to speak for humanity. The large screen in front of him flickered to life, showing a strange blue creature with multiple eyes. "Greetings, individual human," the creature said in perfect human language. "We are the voice of the Zephyrian Collective. We speak for 10 trillion minds thinking as one. We come in peace." Seung-wan felt nervous but excited. This was only the second alien race to contact Earth directly. "Welcome to our solar system. We are honored to meet you." The Zephyrian spokesperson smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "We have been watching your conflict with the Veltharians. We are impressed by your victory. We wish to learn more about your species." Over the next few weeks, the Zephyrians shared amazing technology and knowledge with Earth. They explained how their civilization worked. Every Zephyrian was connected to every other through quantum links that spanned across space. When one Zephyrian learned something, they all knew it instantly. When one made a decision, they all agreed with it immediately. "We have no war, no crime, no conflict," the spokesperson explained to Earth's leaders. Perfect unity brings perfect peace. We have achieved what your species dreams of. The Zephyrians offered to share this gift with humanity. They could link human minds to their collective consciousness. Humans would never feel alone again. They would share knowledge instantly. They would always agree with each other. President Kim Young-soo called an emergency meeting with Earth's top leaders. The offer was tempting. Imagine never having arguments or misunderstandings. Imagine sharing all human knowledge instantly. But Dr. Yoon Seung-won had concerns. Ma'am, I've been studying their psychology for weeks. They don't seem to understand individual thinking. When I ask about personal opinions or private thoughts, they look confused. They literally cannot imagine disagreeing with themselves. Admiral Park Ji-hye, head of Earth's military, was more direct. I don't trust them. They claim to want peace, but they're studying our military capabilities very carefully. Their questions about our battle tactics are too detailed to be innocent curiosity. After 3 days of debate, Earth's government made its decision. They would decline the Zephyrian offer politely. Humans valued their individual thoughts too much to give them up. The Zephyrian response was swift and cold. You have made an unfortunate choice. Individual thinking leads to chaos and conflict. We cannot allow such discord to spread through the galaxy. You will join us willingly or be forced to join us. Within hours, Zephyrian fleets appeared at the edge of human space. The ships were unlike anything humans had ever seen. They moved in perfect formation, thousands of vessels acting as one giant organism. Their coordination was flawless. When one ship turned, they all turned at exactly the same moment. Colonel Choi Hyun-woo commanded the Human Defense Fleet at Kepler Station, humanity's most important military outpost. He watched the enemy approach with growing concern. The Zephyrian fleet was 10 times larger than his force. More importantly, they moved with impossible precision. Sir, reported his tactical officer, their formation is mathematically perfect. Every ship knows exactly where every other ship is going to be at every moment. There are no gaps in their defense, no weak points we can exploit. Hyun-woo studied the enemy patterns on his screens. The Zephyrians were preparing to attack using classic military tactics, but executed with superhuman coordination. They would surround the human fleet, cut off escape routes, and destroy the defenders with overwhelming firepower. They're treating this like a chess game, Hyun-woo realized. They can see every move we're going to make before we make it because they think we'll follow logical battle plans. That's when he got a crazy idea. Open a channel to all human ships, he ordered. I'm transmitting new battle orders. Prepare to implement Protocol Chaos. Protocol Chaos was a desperate strategy that military academy professors taught as an example of what never to do. It involved making completely random decisions in battle. Ships would attack targets chosen by dice rolls. Flight patterns would be determined by random number generators. Battle plans would change every few minutes for no logical reason. Sir, are you sure about this? Asked his second-in-command, Lieutenant Lee Sora. This plan violates every rule of military strategy. Exactly, Hyun-woo replied. The Zephyrians are expecting us to be logical. Let's disappoint them. The battle began at dawn. The Zephyrian fleet advanced in perfect formation, their tactics flawless. They had calculated exactly how the human fleet would respond to each move. Their quantum-linked minds could predict every logical choice the humans might make. But the humans weren't making logical choices. Human ships suddenly broke formation and flew directly at the enemy center, ignoring obvious tactical advantages. Other ships turned around and flew away from the battle, only to circle back and attack from unexpected angles. Some human vessels stopped firing their weapons and rammed enemy ships instead. The Zephyrian formation began to waver. Their perfect coordination depended on being able to predict enemy actions. When the humans acted randomly, the collective mind couldn't adjust fast enough. Enemy fleet behavior does not match any tactical database, reported a Zephyrian ship, captain to the collective consciousness. Human actions appear to be irrational. More confusion followed. A human destroyer ignored 3 easy targets and attacked an empty section of space, only to hit a cloaked Zephyrian scout ship by pure accident. A human cruiser fled from a battle it was winning, then returned to rescue ships that didn't need rescuing. The Zephyrian collective mind began to struggle. 10 trillion connected thoughts all tried to understand human behavior at the same time. The quantum links that gave them perfect coordination became a weakness as contradictory tactical data flooded their shared consciousness. We cannot predict irrational behavior, the collective realized. Chaos cannot be calculated. More human ships joined the battle using Protocol Chaos. They attacked the strongest enemy ships instead of the weakest ones. They protected empty space while leaving valuable targets undefended. They used their most powerful weapons on the least important targets. The Zephyrian fleet, designed for perfect coordination, began to fall apart. Ship captains couldn't decide which random human action to respond to first. The collective mind was receiving too much confusing information to process effectively. All units maintain perfect formation, ordered the Zephyrian fleet commander. But perfect formation was useless against completely unpredictable enemies. Human ships began winning individual battles by doing exactly what military textbooks said never to do. They won because they were willing to make terrible tactical decisions that somehow produced strategic advantages. The breaking point came when Colonel Hyunwoo ordered his flagship to attack the center of the enemy formation alone. It was suicide. Every Zephyrian ship could fire on him at once. But his random flight path was so unpredictable that most enemy weapons missed completely. The collective mind tried to calculate where he would go next and failed. The quantum links connecting all Zephyrian thoughts began to overload as billions of minds tried to solve an unsolvable puzzle. System error, reported Zephyrian ships across the battlefield. Cannot process random variables. Collective consciousness, experiencing cascade failure. One by one, Zephyrian ships stopped responding to commands. Their perfect unity became perfect confusion, as the quantum links that connected their minds began shutting down to prevent total system collapse. The Zephyrian fleet retreated in disorder, their formation broken, their coordination destroyed. They left behind a final transmission that human intelligence officers would puzzle over for years. Individual consciousness is a virus, the message said. Random behavior is a weapon we cannot defend against. The humans fight like controlled chaos itself. We cannot maintain collective unity in the presence of such disorder. Colonel Hyunwoo watched the enemy fleet disappear into hyperspace. Around him, his officers were celebrating their impossible victory. They had defeated a numerically superior enemy through the simple act of being completely unpredictable. "Sir," Lieutenant Lee Sora asked, "how did you know that would work?" Hyunwoo smiled. "I didn't. That was the whole point. If I couldn't predict what we were going to do, how could they?" As the human fleet returned to base, reports came in from across Zephyrian space. The collective was collapsing. 10 trillion linked minds were disconnecting from each other, unable to handle the contradiction of encountering truly random behavior. Within a month, the great Zephyrian collective had fragmented into billions of individual minds, each thinking its own thoughts for the first time in centuries. Their civilization crumbled as former collective beings learned to be individuals again. Earth's military analysts studied the battle records, trying to understand how chaos had defeated perfect order. They found something disturbing in the data. Humanity seemed to be getting better at being unpredictable. 2 years after the Zephyrian collective collapsed, Earth received the most unusual message in human history. The transmission came from the Axionic Republic, a civilization that had ruled the galaxy's core worlds for 10,000 years. What made the message strange was not who sent it, but how it arrived. The message appeared on every computer, every screen, and every communication device on Earth at exactly the same moment. Even devices that were turned off suddenly activated to display the alien text. Dr. Han Soo-young, Earth's top mathematician, was chosen to decode the message because it was written entirely in mathematical formulas. "It's incredible," she told Earth's Leadership Council. "This isn't just a message. It's a complete mathematical proof that demonstrates their superiority over humanity. Every equation is perfect. Every calculation is flawless. They're showing off their intelligence." The message was simple once translated. "Greetings, probability-bound species. We are the Axionic Republic. We have calculated 47 million possible futures for your civilization. In 99.97% of these futures, you submit to our logical governance within 1 solar year. Resistance is mathematically impossible. President Lee Minji called an emergency meeting with Earth's military leaders. The Axionics had included detailed battle projections with their ultimatum. According to their calculations, any war between humans and the Republic would end in exactly 247 days with complete human defeat. They've thought of everything, Admiral Kim Ta-jun reported grimly. Their mathematical models account for every possible human strategy, every weapon we might develop, every alliance we might form. According to their projections, we have 0 chance of victory. Dr. Han studied the alien equations for days, looking for errors or weaknesses. She found none. The axionic mathematics was perfect, their logic unbreakable, their predictions based on universal constants that couldn't be argued with. Ma'am, she told President Lee, I hate to say this, but their math is correct. If we fight using logical strategies, we will lose exactly as they predicted. The axionic ultimatum expired after 30 days, and their response was immediate. Massive geometric ships appeared throughout human space, each vessel a perfect mathematical shape that seemed to hurt human eyes to look at. The ships moved in precise formations based on cosmic equations, their flight paths following the mathematical laws of the universe itself. General Park Ju-hyuk commanded Earth's main battle fleet from his flagship at Mars Station. He watched the enemy approach with a mixture of fear and fascination. The axionic ships were beautiful in their perfect mathematical precision, but they were also terrifying in their cold logic. Sir, his tactical officer reported, the enemy is broadcasting their battle plan to us in real time. They want us to see exactly how they're going to defeat us. The axionic strategy was displayed on the main screen as a series of equations. Every move was calculated to achieve maximum efficiency with minimum resource expenditure. They would destroy exactly the number of human ships needed to force surrender, using precisely the amount of firepower required, at optimal intervals, to minimize their own losses. General Park studied the alien battle plan and realized something important. They're treating this war like a math problem. They've calculated the most efficient way to defeat us, and they're following that formula exactly. That gave him an idea. A terrible, wonderful, completely illogical idea. Open a channel to all human forces, he commanded. I'm implementing the Pyrrhic Protocol. All units are authorized to make tactically stupid decisions that serve the greater strategic goal. The Pyrrhic Protocol was named after ancient Earth battles where armies won by accepting devastating losses. It encouraged commanders to make choices that were mathematically wrong but psychologically effective. It meant sacrificing valuable resources to achieve goals that couldn't be calculated. Sir, his second-in-command protested, that protocol violates every principle of military efficiency. We'll waste ships, waste lives, waste resources for no logical benefit. Exactly, General Park replied. The axionics have calculated how to fight a logical enemy. Let's be illogical. The first battle took place near Jupiter. The axionic fleet approached in perfect formation, their movements following mathematical principles. Their battle plan called for destroying human ships in order of strategic importance, starting with the most valuable targets. But the humans didn't protect their valuable ships. Instead, they used their most advanced warships to shield empty cargo vessels. They sent expensive battle cruisers on suicide runs against minor enemy targets while leaving important facilities undefended. The axionic fleet commanders were confused. Human behavior does not match mathematical projections, they reported to their central command. They are protecting worthless assets while sacrificing valuable ones. The confusion grew as the battle continued. Human pilots rammed their ships into enemy vessels when they could have escaped safely. Human commanders destroyed their own bases rather than let them fall into enemy hands, even when those bases had no strategic value. Recalculating battle projections, announced the axionic command ship. But every new calculation was wrong within minutes as humans continued to act against their own mathematical interests. The breaking point came when General Park ordered his entire fleet to attack the axionic flagship directly. It was military suicide. The flagship was the most heavily defended ship in the enemy formation. Attacking it meant ignoring dozens of easier targets and accepting massive casualties for a goal that might be impossible to achieve. "General, the mathematics are clear," his tactical computer announced. "This attack has a 0.003% chance of success and will result in 89% fleet casualties. This action is not recommended. Override mathematical recommendations," General Park ordered. "All ships, full attack on the enemy flagship. Maximum aggression, minimum self-preservation." The human fleet charged directly into the heart of the axionic formation. Ships exploded left and right as enemy weapons found their targets. But the humans kept coming, their behavior so illogical that the axionic defense computers couldn't predict their attack patterns. The axionic flagship, designed to fight logical enemies, wasn't prepared for suicidal human tactics. Its defensive algorithms kept trying to calculate optimal responses to irrational behavior and failing. Human ships slipped through impossible gaps in its defenses, simply because the computer hadn't calculated that anyone would be crazy enough to try flying through them. General Park's flagship, badly damaged and leaking atmosphere, managed to reach the enemy command ship. Instead of using his remaining weapons to attack, he did something completely illogical. He broadcast a message to the axionic commander. "This is General Park of the human fleet. We are prepared to destroy every ship in our fleet to damage one of yours. We will sacrifice everything for small gains. We will accept total defeat to achieve minor victories. Can your mathematics account for that?" The axionic response came immediately. "Negative. Such behavior cannot be calculated. Strategic value of total sacrifice for minimal gain equals 0. This does not compute." "Then you don't understand humans," General Park replied, and ordered his ship to ram the enemy flagship. The collision destroyed both vessels, but it also destroyed something more important: the axionic faith in mathematical certainty. Across their empire, Republic leaders received reports of human behavior that violated every law of logical warfare. "Humans sacrifice optimal outcomes for suboptimal ones," reported one confused axionic commander. "They choose certain defeat over possible victory. They protect the worthless and abandon the valuable. Their strategic thinking is mathematically impossible." The axionic Republic's central computers began experiencing cascade failures as they tried to process human irrationality. Their entire civilization was based on mathematical perfection, but humans kept doing things that couldn't be calculated or predicted. Within weeks, axionic society began to collapse. Their people had depended on mathematical certainty for everything. When that certainty failed, they couldn't function. Leaders couldn't make decisions without perfect calculations. Citizens couldn't act without mathematical justification. The final transmission from the axionic Republic was itself a mathematical proof, a demonstration that humanity should not exist because their behavior violated too many logical principles. The proof concluded that humans were a mathematical impossibility. The transmission ended with an error message: "Division by zero detected. Universe.exe has stopped working." Dr. Han Soo-young studied the alien mathematics for months afterward, trying to understand how an entire civilization could destroy itself through pure logic. She finally reached a disturbing conclusion. They became so dependent on mathematical perfection that they forgot math is just a tool, she reported to Earth's leaders. When they encountered a problem that couldn't be solved with equations, their entire society crashed like a broken computer program. Earth's military analysts added the axionic defeat to their growing files on impossible human victories. They were beginning to see a pattern. Each alien civilization had been defeated by the same human trait, the willingness to act against logical self-interest. But questions remained. How many more advanced civilizations were out there? And would humanity's illogical approach continue to work, or would 3 years had passed since the mathematical collapse of the axionic Republic. Earth had grown used to impossible victories, but the next enemy would challenge humanity in ways no one had imagined. The message came not through radio waves or quantum transmissions, but directly into the minds of every human being on Earth. Dr. Lee Jinseo was studying psychic phenomena at the Seoul Research Institute when the voices began. At first, she thought she was having a breakdown. Beautiful, otherworldly voices spoke inside her head, offering wisdom beyond mortal understanding. "Greetings, physical beings," the voices said in perfect harmony. "We are the Etherian Dominion. We have transcended the limitations of matter and exist as pure consciousness across dimensional barriers. We offer you the gift of evolution." Similar experiences were reported across Earth. The voices spoke to everyone simultaneously, but each person heard them in their own language, in words that felt personally meaningful. The aliens weren't using technology to communicate. They were speaking directly to human souls. President Song Ji-hyun called an emergency session of Earth's Leadership Council. But the meeting was interrupted when the air in the conference room began to shimmer and glow. A figure made of pure light materialized above the table, its form shifting between beautiful geometric patterns. "Fear not," the being said, its voice resonating inside everyone's minds. "I am Transcendent Sage Lumina Prime, speaker for the Etherian Dominion. We come to offer you ascension to a higher state of existence." Dr. Lee, who had been rushed to the meeting as Earth's only expert on psychic phenomena, struggled to understand what she was seeing. "Are you using advanced holographic technology?" The light being seemed amused. "We are consciousness without form, thought without matter, existence without limitation. We transcended physical reality eons ago. What you see is our attempt to appear in a way your primitive senses can comprehend." The Etherians explained their history. Millions of years ago they had been physical beings like humans, but they had evolved beyond the need for bodies, beyond the limitations of the material universe. They existed now as pure thought, capable of shaping reality itself through will alone. "Physical existence is a prison," Lumina Prime continued. "Your bodies age and die. Your matter decays and returns to dust. But consciousness can be eternal. We offer to free you from the burden of flesh." The offer was tempting in ways that frightened Earth's leaders. The Etherians demonstrated their power by healing diseases, restoring youth to the elderly, and even bringing dead plants back to life. They could manipulate the fundamental forces of physics with their thoughts alone. But Dr. Lee had questions. What happens to our individuality if we transcend? Do we remain human? "Individual identity is an illusion," Lumina Prime replied. "When you ascend, you will understand that all consciousness is one. You will share in our eternal wisdom and power." Dr. Lee exchanged worried glances with the other council members. The Etherians were offering immortality and godlike power, but the price seemed to be everything that made humans human. After days of debate, Earth's government reached a decision. They would politely decline the Etherian offer. Humanity valued their physical existence, their individual thoughts, and their mortal experiences too much to give them up. The response from the Etherian Dominion was swift and terrifying. The beautiful light being's form darkened, becoming something that hurt to look at directly. "You choose ignorance over enlightenment," Lumina Prime said, its harmonious voice turning harsh. "You cling to your primitive existence like insects, afraid of transformation. We cannot allow such spiritual darkness to spread through the universe." What followed was unlike any war in human history. The Etherians didn't attack with ships or weapons. Instead, they assaulted reality itself. Physics began working differently in human space. Gravity reversed itself randomly. Time moved backward in some areas and forward in others. The laws of chemistry changed, making human technology useless. Captain Song Minjong commanded the human vessel Stubbornness, one of the few ships that could still function during reality distortions. Her crew had volunteered for the most dangerous mission in human history, finding a way to fight enemies that existed beyond physical reality. "Captain," reported her science officer, "the Etherians are trying to forcibly evolve our consciousness. They're broadcasting psychic energy that's designed to separate our minds from our bodies." All around human space, people were beginning to experience forced transcendence. Their consciousness would start to lift away from their physical forms, drawn toward the Etherian collective. Most humans found the experience terrifying and fought against it, but some welcomed the sensation of expanding beyond their mortal limitations. "We're losing people," Minjong reported to Earth Command. "Not killed, but evolved against their will. Their bodies are left behind like empty shells, while their minds join the Etherian dominion." The war seemed hopeless. How could physical beings fight enemies that existed as pure thought? Human weapons passed harmlessly through Etherian forms. Human strategies meant nothing against beings that could rewrite reality at will. But Dr. Lee had been studying the enemy carefully. She noticed something important during her psychic research. "Captain, the Etherians keep talking about transcending physical reality, but they still need to interact with our universe to affect us. That means they haven't completely abandoned material existence." "What are you suggesting, Doctor?" Captain Minjong asked. "I think their transcendence is incomplete," Dr. Lee explained. "They claim to be pure consciousness, but they still remember what it was like to have bodies. That memory might be their weakness." Working with Earth's top scientists, Dr. Lee developed something she called anchor technology. The idea was simple but revolutionary. Instead of trying to transcend like the Etherians wanted, humans would become more physical, more connected to material reality than ever before. The first anchor generator was installed on the Stubbornness. When activated, it created a field that made physical reality more solid, more real, more permanent. Inside the field, the laws of physics couldn't be changed by thought alone. Captain Minjong tested the device during the Battle of Titan. As Etherian forces began distorting space-time around her ship, she activated the anchor generator. Immediately, the reality distortion stopped. Gravity worked normally, time flowed forward, chemistry followed predictable rules. "It's working," she reported excitedly. "Inside our anchor field, reality is too stable for them to manipulate." But something even more interesting happened next. The Etherian beings trying to attack her ship began to look different. Instead of beautiful light forms, they appeared more solid, more physical. The anchor field wasn't just protecting humans from forced transcendence. It was forcing the Etherians back toward physical existence. We can feel matter again," one of the Etherian attackers said, its voice filled with something that sounded like wonder. "We had forgotten the weight of existence, the sensation of form. How strange. How familiar." More anchor fields were deployed across human space. Each new generator made reality more solid and forced the Etherians to become more physical. The beings that had transcended material existence millions of years ago were being dragged back toward the universe they had abandoned. The effect on Etherian society was devastating. Their entire identity was based on being beyond physical limitations. When they started experiencing weight, form, and material existence again, many of them panicked. "This is impossible," Transcendent Sage Lumina Prime declared, but its voice now had physical vibrations instead of pure psychic resonance. "We cannot return to crude matter. We are beings of pure thought." "But you're remembering what it felt like to have bodies," Dr. Lee replied through a communication device. "And part of you misses it, doesn't it?" The question caused chaos throughout the Etherian dominion. Millions of transcended beings began experiencing memories of physical sensation. The feeling of breathing, the warmth of sunlight, the satisfaction of eating food. They had thought themselves above such crude experiences, but the memories were surprisingly pleasant. Some Etherians began choosing to become physical again, abandoning their transcendent state to experience material existence once more. Others fought desperately to maintain their evolved consciousness, but found it increasingly difficult as anchor fields spread throughout the galaxy. Captain Minjong watched from her bridge as the impossible happened. Godlike beings were choosing to become mortal again because they missed the simple pleasures of physical existence. "We don't understand," a group of confused Etherians transmitted. "We achieved perfect spiritual evolution. Why does returning to matter feel so satisfying?" Dr. Lee had been thinking about that question for weeks. Maybe because consciousness evolved from physical existence in the first place. Maybe trying to separate mind from matter is like trying to separate a river from its banks. You can do it, but something important gets lost. The Etherian dominion began fragmenting as more beings chose physical existence over transcendence. Their final message to humanity was filled with confusion and something that sounded almost like gratitude. We had forgotten the joy of limitation, the beauty of mortality, the wonder of experiencing reality through physical senses. You have shown us that transcendence, 5 years after the Etherian dominion dissolved, Earth received the most impossible message in human history. The transmission arrived before it was sent. Dr. Kang Daeun, Earth's leading expert on temporal physics, was working late in her laboratory when every clock in the building started running backward. "This can't be happening," she muttered, watching her coffee unspill itself and flow upward into her cup. Time doesn't work like this. But the evidence was undeniable. The message had arrived 3 days ago, but according to the timestamp, it wouldn't be sent until next week. The content was even more disturbing than the impossible timing. "Greetings to the soon-to-be-conquered species," the message began. "We are the Temporarch dynasty, masters of time itself. We have seen your future surrender and have come from that future to accept it. Resistance is historically impossible because we have already won." President Park Sun-hee called an emergency meeting, but the council chamber was already filled with strange temporal effects. Some advisors were aging rapidly while others grew younger. Documents appeared and disappeared as history rewrote itself around them. The Temporarch representative materialized in the center of the room, but his appearance was unsettling. He seemed to exist in multiple time periods simultaneously. Sometimes he looked young, sometimes old, sometimes like he hadn't been born yet. "I am Emperor Kronos Eternal," the figure announced, his voice echoing from past and future at the same time. "I speak from the timeline where your species has already surrendered. This meeting is a formality that occurred yesterday and will happen tomorrow." Dr. Kang tried to understand what she was seeing. "Are you saying you've already defeated us in the future?" "Not the future," Kronos Eternal replied. "All times. We control past, present, and future. We have reinforced our armies with soldiers. From next century, we have prevented your victories by changing the events that caused them. We have won this war before it began." The Temporarch ultimatum was unlike anything humanity had faced. They weren't threatening to destroy Earth in the present. They were threatening to erase humanity from history itself. They could go back in time and prevent human civilization from ever developing. They could make humanity lose wars they had already won. "We offer you one mercy," Kronos Eternal continued. "Surrender now, and we will allow your timeline to continue existing. Resist, and we will erase you from causality itself." But Earth's government had faced impossible odds before. After hours of debate across multiple timelines simultaneously, President Park made her decision. "We reject your ultimatum. If you're going to erase us from history, you'll have to work for it." The response was immediate and terrifying. Human history began changing. Records showed that Earth had lost wars they had actually won. Heroes who had saved humanity were written out of existence. Technologies that humans had invented suddenly belonged to other species. Commander Yu Jiwan found himself in command of a defense fleet that shouldn't exist, fighting a war that had already been lost using weapons that had never been invented. The Temporarch forces attacked from multiple time periods simultaneously, reinforcing their present-day fleet with ships from their own future. "Sir," his tactical officer reported, "the enemy is showing us recordings of our defeat. According to their historical records, we surrender in exactly 47 minutes. Jiwan studied the enemy strategy with growing understanding. They're not just controlling time, they're dependent on it. Their entire war plan assumes that causality works in a logical, predictable way. That gave him a dangerous idea. Kuro. "Ships, prepare to implement the paradox protocol. We're going to do something that should be impossible." The paradox protocol was theoretical technology that Earth's scientists had developed but never tested. It was designed to create temporal paradoxes deliberately, violating the basic laws of cause and effect. Most physicists believed using it would destroy the universe. Sir, the paradox protocol is untested, his science officer warned. Creating temporal paradoxes could unravel reality itself. Maybe, Jiwan replied, but the temporarchs can't exist in a paradox. If we break causality, we break their power. The first paradox engine activated on the human flagship Contradiction. The device sent the ship back in time with orders to prevent its own construction. According to physics, this should have been impossible. The ship couldn't exist if it prevented itself from being built. But instead of disappearing, the Contradiction began existing in multiple contradictory timelines simultaneously. It was built and not built, launched and not launched, present and absent all at the same time. The temporarch forces immediately began experiencing problems. Their time manipulation technology was designed to work within the laws of causality. When humans created paradoxes that violated those laws, the alien time machines couldn't function properly. Temporal anomaly detected, reported a confused temporarch captain. Human vessel exists in contradictory states, cannot calculate proper response to impossible situation. More human ships activated paradox engines. The destroyer yesterday traveled back in time to destroy the enemy fleet before the battle began, but also continued fighting in the present moment. The cruiser Never Was sent a message to the past warning about an attack that hadn't happened yet, then made that attack occur in response to its own warning. The battlefield became a maze of impossible causality loops. Human ships existed in timelines where they had been destroyed while simultaneously fighting in timelines where they had never been built. They were winning battles that had already been lost while losing battles that would never happen. Emperor Kronos Eternal materialized. On the bridge of the Contradiction, his multiple time forms flickering with confusion. "What are you doing?" he demanded. "You're violating the fundamental laws of time itself." "Exactly," Commander Jiwan replied. "Your power depends on time working logically. We're making time work illogically." "But the paradoxes will destroy you too," the Emperor protested. "Nothing can exist in contradictory states." "Watch us," Jiwan said, and activated another paradox engine. The new device created an even more impossible situation. It sent a copy of the human fleet forward in time to help itself fight the battle it was currently losing. The future human fleet arrived to assist the present human fleet against the temporarch forces, creating a loop where humans were helping themselves win a battle by having already won it. The Temporarch dynasty's temporal technology began experiencing cascade failures. Their time machines couldn't process situations where effects preceded causes, where victories created the conditions for their own defeat, where the same battle was simultaneously won and lost in the same timeline. System error, reported temporarch ships across multiple time periods. Causal logic violation detected. Cannot maintain temporal coherence in paradox field. The breaking point came when Commander Jiwan ordered his ship to travel back in time and surrender to the temporarchs before the war began, while simultaneously refusing to surrender in the present. This created a paradox where humanity had both won and lost the war, making the entire conflict exist and not exist at the same time. Emperor Kronos Eternal began fragmenting across timelines as his consciousness tried to exist in multiple contradictory realities. "This is impossible," he said, his voice echoing from timelines that couldn't coexist. "We control all of time. We cannot be defeated by temporal impossibilities." "You control logical time," Commander Jiwan explained. "We're using illogical time. We're willing to exist in paradoxes that should destroy us." Across the Temporarch dynasty, their civilization began experiencing temporal collapse. Their society was built on the assumption that time flowed in predictable patterns. When humans created massive paradoxes that violated those patterns, the Temporarch time control technology couldn't adapt. Temporarch cities began existing in multiple contradictory time periods simultaneously. Their people aged and grew younger randomly as paradox effects spread through their empire. Their historical records showed events that had happened, never happened, and were still happening all at once. The final transmission from Emperor Kronos Eternal came from a timeline where he had never been born, speaking to humans who had never existed. about a war that was still happening after it had already ended. "You exist outside causality itself," he said, his voice fading across impossible timelines. "You embrace paradoxes that should annihilate you. You are temporal impossibilities that refuse to be impossible." The Temperarch dynasty vanished into temporal paradox, their mastery of time becoming their destruction when faced with beings willing to exist in contradictory states simultaneously. Dr. Kang studied the aftermath for months, trying to understand how humans had survived paradoxes that should have destroyed them. Her conclusion was disturbing. Humans had somehow learned to exist in multiple contradictory states without losing their coherence. "We're becoming something new," she reported to Earth's leaders. "Each impossible victory is changing us. We're not just defeating perfect civilizations. We're becoming more impossibly human with each battle." But questions remained. They had defeated energy masters, hive minds, mathematical perfectionists, transcendent beings, and time manipulators. 5 impossible victories against 5 perfect civilizations. What would they discover when they learned the truth about YT? 10 years had passed since the Temperarch dynasty vanished into temporal paradox. Earth stood alone in a galaxy filled with the ruins of 5 impossible civilizations. Dr. Bai Seon-ho, now Earth's chief xenoarchaeologist, led an expedition to understand the greatest mystery in human history. How had humanity defeated enemies that should have been invincible? Her team included heroes from each impossible war. Captain Lee Dong-hyun, who had discovered the Veltharian ruins. Colonel Choi Hyun-woo, who had used chaos to defeat the Zephyrian collective. General Park Ju-hyuk, who had sacrificed logic to destroy the Axionic Republic. Captain Song Min-jung, who had anchored reality against the Etherian Dominion. Commander Yu Ji-won, who had embraced paradox to defeat the Temperarch dynasty. 5 perfect civilizations, Dr. Bai said as their ship traveled between the dead worlds, each one representing the ultimate achievement in their field: energy mastery, perfect unity, mathematical certainty, spiritual transcendence, temporal control, all of them destroyed by humans who shouldn't have stood a chance. Their investigation began at Velthera Prime, the crystal ruins of the first fallen empire. After years of study, patterns were emerging. Each civilization had optimized itself toward a single overwhelming strength, becoming magnificent but inflexible. "Look at this data." Dr. Bai showed her team holographic displays of alien technology. The Veltharians became perfect energy manipulators, but they couldn't adapt when humans turned their own power sources against them. They were so specialized that they forgot how to be anything else. The same pattern appeared on every world they visited. The Zephyrians had achieved perfect unity but lost the ability to handle chaos. The Axionics had mastered mathematics but couldn't process illogical behavior. The Etherians had transcended physical reality but forgotten why material existence mattered. The Temperarchs had controlled time itself but couldn't exist in paradoxes. Commander Yu Ji-won studied the temporal ruins with special interest. "It's like they all made the same mistake. They became so perfect at one thing that they became imperfect at everything else." But the real answer came from an unexpected source. On the 10th month of their expedition, while exploring the quantum foundations of space itself near the galaxy's core, their sensors detected something impossible: a message encoded in the fundamental structure of reality. Dr. Bai's team spent weeks decoding the quantum data, discovering that the message had been written into the laws of physics themselves, millions of years ago. When they finally translated it, they found themselves reading words left by an ancient race called the Precursors. "Greetings to whoever finds this message," the precursor communication began. "We are the species that came before all others in this galaxy. We achieved perfect technological mastery, perfect social harmony, perfect understanding of the universe. We became gods of creation itself." The message continued with a warning that chilled the human investigators. Perfect civilizations do not survive. We learned this truth too late to save ourselves, but we have prepared a test for those who come after us. Captain Lee Dong-hyun read the translation aloud to his companions. "We call it the selection pressure. Every million years, We seed the galaxy with challenges designed to test whether new civilizations are ready for true, cosmic citizenship. Most species fail by becoming too perfect, too specialized, too optimized for their particular strengths. The revelation hit the team like a physical blow. The 5 impossible enemies hadn't been random threats. They had been tests, each one designed to challenge a different aspect of civilization development. The Veltharians tested whether species could adapt to superior technology, Dr. Bay read. The Zephyrians tested whether individuality could survive against perfect unity. The Axionics tested whether chaos could defeat absolute logic. The Etherians tested whether material existence had value beyond transcendence. The Temperarchs tested whether paradox could be embraced instead of feared. General Park Juhyuk sat in stunned silence. You're saying these wars were examinations? More than that, Dr. Bay continued reading. They were evolutionary pressure designed to strengthen the survivors. Each test civilization was created to represent the ultimate achievement in their field. They were meant to be undefeatable by any logical, rational, optimized species. The precursor message explained their methodology. Every test civilization started as a normal species, but the precursors had guided their development, helping them become perfect in one specific area while gradually losing their flexibility in all others. We expected most species to fail, the message admitted. Perfect enemies require imperfect solutions. Only a species willing to embrace its own limitations could defeat beings that had transcended those limitations. Commander Yu Ji-hwan realized the implications. They were looking for a species that refused to become perfect. They were testing for humanity. The message confirmed his understanding. The ideal species is not the most advanced, but the most adaptable. Not the strongest, but the most flexible. Not the most perfect, but the most willing to remain imperfect. But the biggest revelation came at the end of the precursor message. To the species reading this, you have passed our tests. You have proven that you can defeat perfection while remaining imperfect yourselves. You are ready to join the Gardener Corps. Dr. Bay's hand shook as she read the final coordinates. The precursors aren't extinct. They're waiting for us at the galaxy's edge. They want us to become like them, gardeners who plant challenges throughout the universe to ensure that life never becomes so perfect that it stops growing. The team returned to Earth with their incredible discovery. Humanity's impossible victories hadn't been victories at all. They had been graduation exams. Every chaotic, illogical, self-sacrificing decision had been the correct answer to questions that perfect civilizations couldn't solve. President Kim Hyun-seo addressed the world with news that changed humanity's understanding of its place in the universe. We are not conquerors, she announced. We are gardeners in training. The precursors chose us because we alone refused to abandon what makes us human. But the revelation created a difficult choice. The precursors were offering humanity the chance to join their cosmic mission. Humans could become shepherds of galactic evolution, seeding challenges throughout the universe to keep other species from achieving deadly perfection. The offer was tempting. Humans would gain incredible technology, near immortality, and the power to shape the development of entire civilizations. They would become cosmic gardeners, ensuring that the universe continued to grow and change instead of stagnating in perfect harmony. Dr. Bay led the expedition to the precursor homeworld at the galaxy's edge. The journey took 6 months through space that seemed to bend around their ship. When they finally arrived, they found something unexpected, a world that looked almost exactly like Earth. The precursors themselves were equally surprising. They looked remarkably human, though they claimed to have evolved from a completely different evolutionary path millions of years ago. Welcome, fellow gardeners, said the being who introduced herself as first cultivator An Seulgi. We have been waiting for your species to pass our tests. You have proven yourselves worthy of joining our mission. The precursors showed humanity the scope of their work. Across millions of galaxies, they had planted evolutionary challenges to keep life dynamic and growing. They had created perfect civilizations designed to be defeated by imperfect ones. They had guided the development of species like the Veltharians, Zephyrians, Axionics, Etherians, and Temperarchs specifically to test humanity. Every test civilization eventually serves its purpose and ends, First Cultivator Silgi explained. They achieve perfect specialization, encounter a challenge they cannot adapt to, and either evolve or fade away. This is the natural cycle that keeps the universe growing, but humanity's response surprised the precursors. Dr. Bay spoke for her species when she said, "We're honored by your offer, but we need to think about this. Becoming cosmic gardeners sounds like another form of perfection. What happens when someone needs to test the gardeners?" The question created confusion among the precursors. They had expected humanity to eagerly accept the role of galactic shepherds. Instead, humans were questioning whether becoming gardeners might be its own form of evolutionary dead-end. Commander Yu Jiwan raised another concern. "If we become like you, who will be left to defeat us when we become too perfect? Who will test?" The testers, the precursors, had no answer for that question. In millions of years of cosmic gardening, they had never considered that their own role might be a limitation. Captain Song Minjong summed up humanity's dilemma. "Every species you've shown us became perfect at something and then couldn't grow beyond that perfection. How do we know that becoming gardeners won't trap us the same way?" After weeks of discussion, humanity made a decision that shocked the precursors. They would not join the Gardener Corps. They would not become cosmic shepherds or galactic guides. Instead, they would remain beautifully, chaotically, impossibly human. "We'll help when we can," President Kim announced to the assembled precursors. "But we won't become like you. Someone needs to stay imperfect, stay chaotic, stay ready to defeat the next perfect civilization that needs to be challenged." General Park Ju-hyuk explained humanity's reasoning.